Let's see if we can untangle this mess just a little bit. Let's start with what the court majority found. Held, task force members are inferior officers whose appointments by the Secretary of HHS is consistent with the Appointments Clause. Interestingly, SCOTUS did not find that the task force appointments were constitutional because Congress vested the Secretary of HHS with that power, but because they redefined inferior in a way that allowed it. Task force members are inferior officers because their work is directed and supervised by the Secretary of HHS, a principal officer, through two main sources of authority. The Secretary's authority to remove task force members at will provides a powerful tool for control. Beyond at will removal, the Secretary has statutory authority to directly review and block task force recommendations before they take effect. Not a very solid footing, since it appears Congress did not explicitly vest the power of appointing task force members to the Secretary of HHS. However, this argument does seem to dismantle Justice Thomas's assertion that the task force reports directly to the President. Next, what about the legal authority of this task force? As Justice Thomas noted in his dissent, the case concerns the U.S. Preventative Service Task Force, a body that issues legally binding recommendations regarding preventative healthcare treatments. If the recommendations are legally binding, then they're no longer recommendations. Furthermore, for them to be legally binding, they are effectively making law, which is a power reserved to Congress, not the executive departments. The court has frowned on the idea of Congress being able to delegate their power to another branch in its non-delegation doctrine. The non-delegation doctrine is the principle that Congress cannot delegate its legislative powers or lawmaking ability to other entities. And lastly, remember that Congress, and only Congress, has the power to regulate interstate commerce, but that does not include the power to force health insurance companies to pay for services neither them nor their customers requested. This is what happens when we, the people, allow our elected representatives to ignore their oath to support the Constitution, even if it's for what they think is a good reason. Not just creating the task force, but in their failure to impeach federal judges for their bad behavior. Going back to my grandfather's quote, "Where were you when the page was blank?" The problem here is that the page wasn't blank. There is ample documentation that the recommendations of the task force are not law and can have no legal force whatsoever. The task force was created by an unconstitutional act and delegated powers not vested to the government of the United States. As the Supreme Court stated in the case Ex parte Siebold, an unconstitutional law is void and it has no law. An offense created by it is not a crime. A conviction under it is not merely erroneous, but is illegal and void and cannot be a legal cause of imprisonment. So why did the attorneys for Braidwood Management take such an odd and twisted approach to the illegal actions of the task force? Probably because the courts have so twisted and ignored the Constitution, they simply make up new rules as they need them. And this was the best approach they thought they had. To me, that is a truly bad state of affairs.